That was some good intro music, wasn't it? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of BSing Sports with a little twist on it. We're doing a weekly fantasy episode. I am your host, Ryan. This is your other host, Muted Tim. What's up, Muted Tim?
What up, Ryan? How you been today?
I'm hanging in there. Are you excited to start this new segment?
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, thanks for the clutch idea. I think it's fantastic. I mean, we're in the full swing of fantasy season, and you and I are both pretty heavy fantasy players. Maybe we could share the advice that we constantly talk about with one another. Who knows? Maybe somebody's listening out there.
Maybe, who knows?
Maybe we get something right. But on this episode today, since it is kind of the pilot of this segment, we are going to just talk about, one person from each position. Tim and I each have a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and what we feel their outlook will be from a fantasy perspective. And then we will do some start sit. If we have some dilemmas, which, by the way, Tim, means, kind of like a situation you're in. Like if you need to start Elijah Moore or DJ Moore, which one would you pick? So right into it, Tim, who did you pick for your quarterback? And, what do you want to talk about with them?
I want to talk about Jalen Hunts.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, Monday night I didn't get to see the game or wasn't feeling too well. But I hear that he spread the ball around, that he was actually doing what he's supposed to do as the starting quarterback in the NFL.
He had a fantastic game.
But 2 weeks ago against the Lions, he only really focused on A.J. Brown and running the ball. So I'm happy he made that change. What does he need to do in the future to keep up with that same positivity from Monday night?
To me, he just needs to continue to work all the receivers. The Vikings defense isn't fantastic, but Jalen Hurts, had an outstanding performance. So, and from a fantasy perspective, obviously, he had a great performance as well. Over 300 passing yards, 50 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and a passing touchdown to Quez Watkins of 54 yards. So, Tim, what do you feel about Jalen Hurts' fantasy outlook?
I think right now, last year, he finished, quarterback 5 of the year.
I think in points per game, he was somewhere in that neighborhood, quarterback 4, quarterback 5, something like that.
And if he keeps up his good pace that he's doing this year with running the ball, running touchdowns, throwing the ball for touchdowns, I think he finishes in the same area.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think, he's kind of, got that top 5 ceiling, so to speak. The rushing upside that he has, provides great fantasy points, particularly if you're in, a 4-point passing touchdown league. The difference between, running quarterbacks and non-running quarterbacks is so substantial. So I do think Jalen Hurts finishes as a top 5, but there are some, lingerings about his fantasy outlook because the Eagles may potentially move off of him after his rookie deal. So what are your thoughts on that?
Listen, he's proven his point that he could be a good NFL quarterback. If anything, they trade him, maybe get draft capital, draft space, cap space, so you don't have to sign him for $50 million, like we talked about, like Russell Wilson a year. But in my opinion, if he keeps playing the way he is right now, I think the Eagles should sign him.
Okay. Yeah, the quarterback I want to talk about is Tua Tagovailoa. He just had a fantastic game on Sunday, leading a comeback to beat the Ravens. They scored 28 points in the fourth quarter. Tua had 2 receivers over 150 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns each. He had a fantastic game and elevated him all the way to quarterback 5. Tim, from your perspective, real quick, how do you think that sustains? Do you think Tua is actually a top 5, even a top 10 quarterback, or do you think that falls off?
I absolutely think that's going to fall off.
No faith.
I think he would be a quarterback 1 type caliber quarterback.
For those of you that don't know, a quarterback 1 is a quarterback that is 1 through 12 because most leagues are 12-team leagues.
I think he would be one of those. I do not think he has a shot if he learns how to use Tyreek Hill. So I saw something on Facebook today about Chris Collinsworth, and he ripped Tua apart during this Ravens game. He
Didn't age well, did it?
Huh?
Didn't age well, did it?
No, after the game was over, he ripped him apart and everything.
For what?
Like, he critiquing his passes, how underthrown they were.
Yeah, you know what? I saw that too. It was Colin Cowherd. He was talking about underthrowing Tyreek Hill several times. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. And it was another one that he's saying that you hit wide open wide receivers on missed coverages. Yeah, you better hit wide open wide receivers on missed coverages. Like, you're an NFL quarterback, you have to hit them.
Yeah, I didn't understand when he was ripping him like into him there about like, you know, he could only hit dudes when the coverages were blown. Okay, well, what if he didn't hit them when the coverage was blown? What would you be saying?
Exactly.
Like you're complaining about him doing the right thing? Like, give me a break. I do want to talk about Tua because I do think that he does finish as a QB1, which again is a top 12 quarterback for the season. I think the upgraded receiver, finally getting them a true number one receiver in Tyreek Hill, just elevates this offense to a completely different level because while Tua does have, you know, roughly NFL, you know, average NFL arm strength, I don't think he has great arm strength, but Tyreek Hill can take a ball 5 yards past the line of scrimmage and take it to the house from anywhere on the field. So the explosive combination of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, I think, elevate Tua to almost look better than what he actually is. You know, I think he's an okay, like, real-life quarterback, but I think this year with the weapons that he has around him, Gesicki, you know, I think he'll just be a top 12 quarterback. You know, he has all the weapons. To touch on this comment, Waddle is a wide receiver one on any other team. That's crap. I don't think Jalen Waddle. I mean, he might be a top 20 real life wide receiver, but that I don't think he's, you know, I don't think on every other team he's a wide receiver one. I mean, look at the Eagles; they have their wide receiver one. Look at the Minnesota Vikings. Look at the Las Vegas Raiders. You know, I think Jalen Waddle's safely like a top 20 receiver, but. One, he's only been in the league one full year. We haven't seen him really do much for over a sustained period of time. And number two, there's just better receivers out there. Tim, what's your take?
I agree with you on that one, Ryan. Like you named big names, teams already that should make the playoffs. If like say Jalen Waddle went to the Chiefs, yeah, he'd be the number one there for now.
Yeah.
Green Bay, like he'd be the number one there, but like the Vikings, even the Chargers, Keenan Allen, the number one there.
I'm gonna be honest. I would be hard pressed to say Jalen Waddle might be the number 3 on the Chargers.
Yeah, exactly. You got Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and then Waddle.
I think Mike Williams.
Waddle is a good wide receiver, top 20, like you said, but he's not a number one on every team in the NFL.
Okay, this is a good question from Kalua. Guys, quick question. Should I drop Pickens for Mooney or should I keep Pickens on the bench? Both wouldn't start at the moment. For me, I would probably take Mooney. This is an odd one. So if it's Dynasty, I would very much keep George Pickens. Mooney actually is a wide receiver we're going to touch on in a little bit, and Tim wanted to talk about him, so I'll let him talk about him later. So I'll talk about George Pickens. I like George Pickens. I think his talent is fantastic. I think he landed it in a great spot. The Steelers have always developed wide receivers very well, and I just like Pickens a lot. But so if this is Dynasty, I would keep Pickens. But if this is redraft, I would probably drop Mooney simply because he is the only wide receiver, and eventually they have to start getting him the football. Tim, what's your take on that question?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like you said, if it's Dynasty, I would definitely keep Pickens and drop. I'd keep both of them, really. If Mooney gets traded to a different team, he'd still have the shot to be a wide receiver 2, maybe a wide receiver 3 still. He still had the chance to put up numbers. Look at Tyler Boyd with Chase, with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Like, he's still a good number 3 wide receiver. I think Mooney has the talent to be like that.
See, I disagree. And we might as well talk about Darnell Mooney now. Scooby Taylor, if you're still watching, we will get to your question in a second. Go ahead and talk about Darnell Mooney right now because I think we're going to have conflicting opinions on Darnell Mooney. So
right now, when we did our top 36 wide receivers, he was in my top 24, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has the talent. I don't think the offense is around him. But he needs to learn how to get open on his own, and Justin Fields needs to learn how to make him. So Justin Fields needs to make a better throw for him to put him in a better position. to make the big plays that I know he could make.
So you think it's all encompassing? You think it's a little Fields, a little Mooney, a little the Bears?
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm going to agree to a certain extent, but truthfully speaking, I don't see Darnell Mooney as a true number one receiver on any NFL team.
I agree with that.
He doesn't have that blazing Tyreek Hill speed. He doesn't have size. He's about 5'9", 180, which is about how big I am. And to me, he just got hyper targeted last year. He had 140 targets, which kind of elevated him into that very low wide receiver 2 range. He finished wide receiver 23 in PPR leagues last year. So I personally don't like Mooney. I think that the Bears' true number one receiver is still in college, looking at you, Jackson Smith-Njigba. But that's just my take on that. I don't like Mooney at all. I don't like his talent. I think he's very overvalued, and I was in a hurry to sell all my Darnell Mooney shares in the offseason when people were still high on him. Right. Good question. So, yes, Dynasty Pickens, redraft Mooney.
Mm-hmm.
This question from Scooby Taylor. I'm in a bad situation, 0-2. Hey, man, I got a couple leagues where I'm like that too. So,
not the only one, man.
Yeah, have DeAndre Swift and Austin Eckler. That's a good running back combo. Receivers are Evans and Bateman. We have 3 flex. Wow, how's this team 0-2? I have 3 flexes. I have ETN, Pierce, and Michael Carter. I think I found the answer. Do I trade Eckler for Higgins and Hunt redraft?
No, I don't.
You say no?
I would not. It's a redraft league.
That's true. That's true. I mean,
if it's dynasty, absolutely.
Oh yeah. It does say redraft, but you know what? I tend to agree with you there. I wouldn't panic with a team like that. Ultimately, I'm assuming it's PPR. I think your roster is a little running back heavy, but I would probably try to sell high on somebody like Michael Carter to see if you can get a lateral receiver somewhere in that neighborhood.
Try to go get let's say Darnell Mooney from Michael Carter or something, or George Pickens or Chase Claypool. Go get another wide receiver for one of these guys down there, ETN, Pierce, or Michael Carter. I think ETN time will come eventually this year, but we don't know when.
Yeah, I'm.
Now this one that he showed down here.
Do you pull that one up? I could also trade Eckler for Kamara and McLaurin. I would probably be a little bit more inclined to do this.
Yes. So would I.
Yeah, if you're going to trade Eckler, which, we just gave our opinions on, personally, I would trade one of the other running backs. But if you're going to trade Eckler, then this is probably more the deal that I would do. You still get a low-end RB1 in Alvin Kamara. He's going to get his. And Terry McLaurin, although they seem to be spreading the ball around a little bit more, he's not so much a target hog as he used to be. He's still very effective. He's still going to be a low-end wide receiver too. He'll still have his boomer bust wide receiver 1 weeks. So I think that this would probably be the better trade for you if you really feel inclined to do it. But thank you, Kalua, for the like. But anyway, yeah, this is probably the trade that I would do if you really feel inclined. Like I said, I'd be a little bit more patient, but in redraft, I understand the need to feel like you have to sell.
Yeah, exactly. Now, coming from a guy who just left all the redraft leagues he could this year.
Yeah, we're not in any redraft leagues, by the way. So
I tried to trade Eckler 2 years ago, I think, and I didn't do well on it. So Eckler really popped off and showed me up, plain out and simple. I traded him for Kamara and someone else. I don't remember.
That's not a bad trade last year, though. Kamara finished as an RB1.
Yeah, but Eckler really popped off with the 22.
That's true. He was RB2 in PPR leagues.
Exactly. So I would definitely, if you're going to make a deal in redraft, I'd definitely do the Kamara and McLaurin deal because you have a good another running back and McLaurin, like Ryan said, the wide receiver too, that can fill up one of your flex spots for like ETN or PS.
So I want to take some time out to say thank you for the questions. It's exactly why we're doing this show. We want to interact with you guys as fans and get your opinions and maybe start questions like this about trades and whatnot. But let's continue with our running backs. Tim, you had a running back you wanted to talk about. You want to go ahead and talk about him?
Dalvin Cook.
You're welcome, Scooby. Hop on next week for more information.
Or ask more questions now, man.
Or do it now.
So I have Dalvin Cook in 3 of my dynasty leagues right now. I'm going to ask you a question. Yeah, exactly. Let's say
last week in the off season.
last week he cost me one league by 0.2 points. He needed 10 points. He got me 9.8. What am I supposed to do? The Vikings need to give him the ball more, in my opinion. I'm not utilizing them.
I just hinted at it. I would have sold Dalvin Cook in the offseason personally. With Kevin O'Connell coming in there from the Rams, obviously you can make the assumption that they're going to be a more pass-heavy offense. And maybe that does include a little bit more of Dalvin Cook being involved in the pass game, but it doesn't really look like that's the case to start the season. So me personally, I would have sold high on him in the offseason. But I am very different from you in the sense that I hate keeping running backs that are 26 years or older on my roster. I find ways to get rid of them as fast as you can, specifically because you probably could have gotten a 23 first for Dalvin Cook in the offseason. And that's the direction that I would have went, especially, considering the running back depth you have in those leagues. I probably would have sold him. But now I would still shop around, see if anybody's going to take the bait, see if you can still get a 23 first. But I truly believe that Dalvin Cook is going to be out of running back one contention because the offense just doesn't demand it. You look at the Rams last year. They had 10 total rushing touchdowns. It was the lowest of the Sean McVay era. That passing offense really took off. So for me, I would shop around. If you can't get the first, you might as well just hold him and hope he finishes with some decent RB2 numbers every week.
Let me ask you a question then. I got a trade offer earlier. I know you're not shopping around for Dalvin Cook, so I'm going to tell you what it is.
Yeah, as I just said, I'm not shopping around for Dalvin Cook.
So I got a trade offer for Dalvin Cook, Devontae Smith, Devontae Smith and Chris Godwin for Trey Lance and Debo Samuel.
Oh, that was with you. Davis was texting me about that earlier.
Yeah.
Man, I'm just the guy everybody reaches out to. I don't know. So what were you giving up? You were getting Trey Lance and Debo. You were giving up Dalvin and what?
Smith and Chris Godwin. Yeah, that's what I would definitely about too. Okay.
I would keep the Godwin, Smith, Cook right there. I do like Debo. I think he's a wide receiver one, and it's weird to say this. You usually talk about quarterbacks in this aspect. He has rushing upside. So and he's clearly the number one wide receiver on that team. I know George Kittle ultimately will have involvement in that offense, but Godwin is still very young, playing on the franchise tag, and he could easily go somewhere in the offseason where he's the clear-cut number one. I'm thinking Jacksonville, Chicago, something like that. His situation really can only improve in the sense that, there's going to be less mouths to feed wherever he goes in the offseason. I could see him potentially going to Jacksonville and teaming up with Trevor Lawrence. He would be the clear-cut number one there. That would be my most ideal situation for him. But Tom Brady's not going to be back. That doesn't concern me. Like I said, I think if Tom Brady ultimately does call it quits, that Chris Godwin and Leonard Fournette follow them out the door. So I don't think either one of them would be Bucks next year.
Before we answer the Jukes guy, let's go back down to Scooby over here.
Yeah, Scooby. Because Scooby did ask earlier, give us 1 second, Juke. We'll get to you. Forgot to mention I snagged Treylon Burks and Garrett Wilson off waivers. If that changes your mind about keep, sell Eckler. I personally, at this point, as long as Joe Flacco's starting, which he is starting for week 3, I would put Garrett Wilson in the lineup. He's clearly the favorite wide receiver of, Joe Flacco on the outside. And the Jets aren't good enough that they're not going to throw the ball 35 times a game with Joe Flacco. So I think the volume's there. And I think Wilson, especially with the game he just had last week, kind of set foot. And teams are still looking at Elijah Moore as the number one. So I think Garrett Wilson's going to have some opportunity there. I would go ahead and I would take a flyer on Garrett Wilson personally. That's just me.
Yeah, I agree with what you said there. But if you still want to sell Eckler through the Kamara and McLaurin trade and then put Garrett Wilson as another flex spot for yourself.
Yeah, I would still consider that Kamara McLaurin trade, especially if that was sent to you. Someone like that. You get somebody with wide receiver one potential and you get a firm low end or running back one. So I would do something like that. To go answer you, Juked, I apologize. We were, Timmy, quit touching stuff. Thanks.
Let me do it.
Who should I start at flex? Antonio Gibson, A.J. Dillon, Drake London, or Brandon Cooks? If this is your scenario, sir, I think you have a pretty good lineup.
Wow.
Yeah. Is this PPR? Because that would change my answer just a little bit.
But right now, I'm going to say Drake London.
If I assume PPR, I am going to say not Antonio Gibson. I think there's too much passing volume, and the Washington Commanders reverted back to their old roles of J.D. McKissick being the main third down pass catching back. He did PPR, confirm that it is, in fact, PPR. So for those of you that cannot see the comments, AJ Dillon's a weird one to me. So already at week 2, we've seen a ceiling and a floor game from both A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. Obviously, Aaron Jones has the ceiling. He's the better of the 2 running backs. A.J. Dillon is a weekly starter, in my opinion. So the fact that you're talking about putting him in a flex spot is huge. I still got to go Brandon Cooks, in my opinion. I could see the appeal for Drake London. The Falcons are a bad football team. They're going to throw the ball a lot, and they really are thin on options. I think eventually they have to get Kyle Pitts more involved, which would, be to the detriment of Drake London. And Brandon Cooks is Mr. Consistent, Mr. Reliable. I think it depends on the rest of your lineup too, but without seeing the rest of your lineup, I would say Brandon Cooks just because there's a nice floor there.
I get your point of view on that one, Ryan. To me, it depends on really who the Falcons and the Texans are really going to play per week.
I know that. Who do the Falcons play? I just looked at it earlier.
Geno Smith of Seattle.
Yep, Seattle.
So I got to take Drake London against Seattle right there.
Who do the Texans play? They play the Chicago Bears in Chicago. So, yeah, I would go ahead and take Drake London in that, actually, just because the upside's there. And really, Drake London's had a fantastic start to the season. What's up, Pete? Yeah.
What up, Pete?
And it does depend on your matchup, too. If you need a guy that is more of a floor-safe player, I would go Brandon Cooks. But if you're projected to, lose by like 10 or 15 points, this guy clearly has, a better lineup than you. Shoot for the moon, man. Go for Drake London. But if those are your flex options every week, man, you are doing way okay for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I want to know the rest of your team when you have a chance, Juke.
But, to touch on the running back that I wanted to talk about, did we talk about your running back?
Yeah, we talked about Dalvin Cook.
Oh, yeah, we talked about Dalvin Cook. The running back I want to talk about is Christian McCaffrey. He's running back 9 in PPR so far this year. And he's obviously, you look at that ranking and you're like, man, he's doing pretty solid. It looks like Baker Mayfield just in any way, shape, or form does not want to get this guy the football. He's wide open, 5 yards. You're welcome, Juke. Any other questions, feel free to talk about it. We're going to be here for a little while. So back to Christian McCaffrey. He's a PPR monster, has been, for years. And I'm wondering if the Panthers are trying really hard to limit his in-game touches to keep him healthy for a full season, which would obviously hinder his fantasy value a little bit. But I think right now we're seeing the floor of Christian McCaffrey. I think eventually if the Panthers want to even sniff the win column, they got to start getting Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore, but more so specifically Christian McCaffrey, the football. So he's running back 9, averaging 16.3 fantasy PPR points per game, which is a nice solid floor, but we've seen him do way more, and that's only with 1 touchdown this season. So I expect him to be in the end zone more. I expect him to see more receptions. So fantasy owners who have Christian McCaffrey, we're expecting top 5 numbers. Don't panic just yet.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Ryan. I sold Christian McCaffrey in a couple of leagues last year, and I kind of regret it, but it is what it is. Like you said about the Panthers, they need to start utilizing them if they want to start winning. I think last week Christian McCaffrey told Baker, "Give me the ball, don't run. Give me the ball."
Yeah. When they were doing that little conversation after Baker ran for about 5 yards, McCaffrey was open right in front of him, and he was calling for the football. And if I'm the Panthers, between Christian McCaffrey catching a ball at the 5 yards past the line of scrimmage and Baker Mayfield running the football, I would just give it to McCaffrey and let him make a man or two miss. That's where I'm putting my odds at this point. I don't make the decisions for the Panthers, and apparently neither does Baker Mayfield. So moving on, we do have a question here from Steez. I traded Javonte Williams, Derrick Henry, Mike Williams for Saquon Barkley, CeeDee Lamb, Darrell Henderson, and D-Hop. Did I win it?
Now,
if this is redraft, man, I don't know. This is a weird trade. I'm going to say no, and here's why I say no. Dak Prescott, and I'm talking specifically about CeeDee Lamb, looked terrible I mean, even when he was playing, he looked awful. Now, granted, the Bucs defense is very good. They have a very good front seven, 2 good linebackers, and they play decent coverage too. So I'm not really buying into CeeDee Lamb being a true number 1 alpha receiver. I very easily see a way where Mike Williams outproduces CeeDee Lamb again this year, because Mike Williams was the wide receiver 12 last year. CeeDee Lamb was the wide receiver 19. I could very easily see Mike Williams outproducing him again. Darrell Henderson, I'm not buying that he's in any kind of RB1 role. I think him and Akers are really going to start to split touches more as the season goes along. Akers just had 15 carries this last game, so I'm not really, buying the hype there that he's the true starter. I'm not a fan of D-Hop, but when he comes back, if this is a redraft league, that's a good pickup. So I'd say it's close. I think personally you lost. I do like the upside of Javonte, Derrick Henry, and Mike Williams a little bit more than the upside of the side you did receive. But I think both floors are very similar.
Now, I got a question. Did you buy Barkley after the first week? That's my big thing. If you bought Barkley after the first week, then I think you lost.
So I saw an algorithm on Twitter, actually. This is funny, that there are only 3 candidates based on like the past 30 years of fantasy history that can be the RB1 this year. It was DeAndre Swift, Christian McCaffrey, and Saquon Barkley.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's this weird long algorithm that was pages and pages of a post, but it was interesting. So I do believe in Saquon Barkley. I think Brian Dable will be in there. And with them having no clear receiving options means Saquon Barkley is the number 1 in that offense, not just running back, but he is the main primary focus in that offense. And he's too good to be stopped by a defense. So in my opinion, I think Saquon Barkley is the best player in this trade. So I think that you did very well there. I have concerns about the other 3.
Yeah, I got to agree with mine. If it's redraft, it's close, but I think you still lost by like a half a hair, really. D-Hop, a great addition when he comes back.
Yeah. It really all depends. Like, are you 2-0 now and you can afford to have D-Hop wait until week 7?
Exactly.
With a little bit of context, if you're 2-0, I'm assuming if you Javonte Henry and Mike Williams, you probably are 2-0, at least 1-1. But I think you lost by a hair. I just don't trust CD, Darrell. No, too many question marks there.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Moving on to Sean Rogan's comment.
Yep.
Trade Mark Andrews and Javonte Williams for Joe Mixon and A.J. Brown.
No, I want it.
Yeah, see, this is tough for me. I think Joe Mixon's a clear upgrade over Javonte Williams, like simply because Joe Mixon's not in a timeshare. He's good at catching the football. He does everything that Javonte Williams does, except he doesn't share the role with somebody else. But Mark Andrews, in terms of positional scarcity, is too good. Tight end position's so thin. You have like this tier of essentially Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce, and then like 3 other guys, and then everybody else. So I think if you have one of those, second tier guys, or maybe even Travis Kelce on your team, maybe do this move. But I think with the positional scarcity, I would hold on to Mark Andrews. Sean touched on he has Darren Waller as well. I would probably ask for a little bit more, but if they negotiate to this, I would say yes. AJ Brown might end up as a wide receiver 1 this year. You and I have a league bet about that, actually, so I might lose that one. But AJ Brown gets hyper targeted, and even in a game where he doesn't get hyper targeted, like Monday night, he still ended up with 5 catches for 69 yards. And if 14 fantasy points is his floor, you should be real happy with that.
Exactly.
So yeah, I would probably ask for a little bit more, but if you have to settle, I would say that's a good settling point. Good question, Sean. Good trade opportunity. Wide receiver. I kind of only expected this show to be half hour, but let's keep going. Who'd you pick for wide receiver? You picked Mooney. You picked Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, we already talked about Mooney. So
I got Elijah Moore.
Elijah Moore. Okay.
Yeah. So as we touched on earlier in the show, Tim and I kind of backed out of redraft leagues for the most part. I'm in one. Couldn't say no, to my boys over there talking 215, Jake Piasato. Go ahead and give them a listen, especially if you're a Vikings fan. Sorry, Pete, had to. Anyway, Elijah Moore. I'm not panicking on Elijah Moore in Dynasty. I think that his situation can only get a little bit better, especially when Zach Wilson comes back and they do, get back into rapport. and Elijah Moore steps up as the number one receiver that everybody thinks he can. But there is a little bit of concern. Garrett Wilson obviously is the clear-cut favorite for Joe Flacco early on. In redraft, I would probably keep him on the bench until you see some proof that he does very well, which leads me into one of my conundrums. Who do I start, Rashad Bateman or Elijah Moore in my second flex spot?
Bateman.
I think Bateman was the other receiver. Bateman was the other receiver that I wanted to talk about personally, and he seems like one of those dudes. He has to play until he proves to you that he can't, because Lamar Jackson just seems to love him. I mean, they've connected on 270-plus yard touchdowns in 2 weeks already, so Bateman's a surefire start until he's not. Here's a question from Pete. What do we think of if Corey Davis? He did correct it to think of, so I just wanted to make fun of him there for a little bit.
Davis on the Bills, right?
No, Corey Davis is on the Jets.
Ow.
He's one of those.
Big of a difference.
Yeah, he's one of them dudes, man. I don't really know about Corey Davis. He's not somebody you can trust on a week-to-week basis. So if he does, to me, Corey Davis, if he's one of those guys that puts up 11 to 12 points a week, I'm okay risking not having him, and he does that, than taking him on, and he's just a complete dud or he gets hurt. That he's one of those guys I'm okay with. And there are guys across fantasy that, are like that. I would so much rather just take the chance to watch them produce somewhere else on the waiver wire or somebody else's bench than, hold up a roster spot on my team and they're just a complete dud because you really can't figure them out. So he says, I can't figure them out. I'm just hanging on for dear life. If it's a deep enough bench, I would just hang on to him. But if it's not a deep bench, then I would just move off. Oh, this is a good question. I'm assuming this is supposed to be opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
What's your opinion on TJ Hockenson, Tim?
I still love him. I traded for him in a couple leagues, but I traded him away in a couple leagues. I needed draft capital in one league, so I traded him away to get draft capital. He's good to get draft capital. He has the hands. He had a couple drops last week. Every professional player had drops, no matter what. They're going to have them. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, they're going to have drops. It is what it is. Don't give up on Hockenson yet. He's going to have his game soon. Or games.
Move off of Hockenson ASAP. Here's why. I'm a firm believer, especially in Dynasty, that talent wins out in the long run, and TJ Hockenson is talented. I truly don't think he's top 5 talented like he was 2 seasons ago. Last year he got hurt, fell out of the top 5. He finishes the tight end 15 in 14 games. But at the same time, where talent matters, situation matters a little bit, but I think it matters more to tight ends than everybody else, simply because 99% of teams across the league, the tight end is not the number one option. If you exclude Baltimore and KC, I think there's no tight ends across the league that are the number one option. I don't think Kittle is in San Francisco. I don't think Waller is in Vegas. So you got to look at the team around them and kind of just analyze and be like, are they really worth it? Hawkinson's not producing now, and the Lions are throwing the ball 35, 40 times a game. Amon-Ra St. Brown's through the roof. What's going to happen when Jameson Williams comes into the offense? DJ Chark's getting some targets. Josh Reynolds is getting some targets. Hockenson, had a rough game on Sunday. And I personally, redraft and Dynasty, I would definitely look to move off of TJ Hockenson. That's just me. I don't have too much faith. I think his top 5 year 2 years ago was kind of a maximum ceiling with a lot of opportunity and people getting hurt involved in that. So that's my take on Hockenson.
We got a new question from Scooby.
Hell yeah, Scooby. Awesome name, by the way.
Yeah, I love it. Boys, I got another offer.
Go ahead.
I give up Eckler and ETN for Javonte and DJ Moore. Do we like that more than original trade? Listen.
No. DJ Moore. DJ Moore's another one of those guys, especially in redraft. Like, he's a flex play at best until Baker starts proving that he can consistently get him the football. In redraft, because you touched on that, Robbie Anderson's clearly the number one on that team. in terms of targets through the first 2 weeks. So I need to see a little bit more out of DJ Moore before I think that that's a fair enough trade. At the same time, if somebody's looking to buy ETN pretty high, I would go ahead and move off of him too. I'm not so sure what his ceiling is now that James Robinson's come back and gotten a bulk of the carries. Outside of one long run Sunday, though, James Robinson didn't look very good. I think like 75% of his yards came on one carry. So, but if he's getting the opportunity, it's an obvious timeshare for ETN. So I would look to see if somebody can sell or somebody's buying high on ETN. Maybe you get somewhere there. But for DJ Moore, no, I would need a better wide receiver than that.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. If you get like Javonte and like AJ Brown, or like Javonte, or maybe like Tyreek Hill, I'll do that. But I don't think anyone's going to do that, to be honest. Especially giving up Javonte.
Yeah.
I like that original trade with Kamara and McLaurin. Try to get that one.
Yeah, even if you can improve on the wide receiver just a little bit from McLaurin. But like I said, if you have to settle on that deal, I think you'd be fine there. But I would try negotiating the price up a little bit on that side. John Ferris says, Pittman against KC, what's your take? My biggest fear about Pittman is whether he plays or not. I mean, if he plays, he has to be in your lineup. Like, period, end of story. There's no way, shape, or form that Pittman should not be in your lineup every single week if he is healthy. Now, my biggest concern is last week he practiced Thursday limited, and then Friday had a no-show at practice, so he kind of regressed. Now, today, it was reported that he was limited, so I would keep a very close eye on what he does tomorrow at practice. If he's limited again or upgraded to full, he should be good to go. And with the way that the Colts are struggling to move the football through the air, they desperately need to get Michael Pittman involved. He's going to be heavily involved in the passing offense. He is a must-start every week if he is healthy.
John, I got something for you, man. Let me get Pittman off of you, John.
Yeah, if you're concerned about him, you can trade him to me, dude.
I'm going to the trade, man.
Yeah. If you don't have to make these decisions if he's not on your team. It's big brain energy right there. Hey, would you trade Drake London for Pitts? My current tight end is Higbee. This is an interesting scenario. Higbee has always been one of those guys that's in like that third massive tier of tight ends that just like can't separate themselves from one another. But he is being extremely hyper-targeted this year. So it's an interesting scenario. I can understand why you would be high on Higbee. I am not high on Pitts in the slightest. Like, I think Pitts, especially in redraft, is a no-go. He had one touchdown last year and was 3 points per game behind the guy in front of him. So there was a massive gap between him and I think it was – who was the tight end 5 last year? It wasn't Schultz. It was
Schultz at 3. So Darren Waller, maybe? No, he was hurt most of the season.
No, I can't remember who the tight end 5 was last year, but there was a massive gap. We'll use George Kittle. George Kittle had like 14.9 points per game last year. There was a massive gap between him and George Kittle, who's the tight end 4. There's a lot of room for improvement, and so far early in the year, it does not look like Pitts is going to cover that ground. If this is a dynasty, then I would hold on to Pitts just because tight ends are scarce, and I do think Pitts will eventually pan out. But right now, as I touched on earlier, tight ends are the most vulnerable to situation changes, and Pitts' situation does not look good in my opinion. So I would hold on to Pitts in Dynasty. I would look to trade him maybe for somebody better than Drake London, but that's just me.
All right, so my tight end we wanted to talk about was Pitts. But let's answer the Juke's question again real quick, and then we go back to my tight end.
All right, Juke. Oh, go ahead.
Do it.
All right, my hands in my pockets. I'm not doing nothing.
Garrett Wilson is on waivers, so I dropped Devontae Smith to pick him up. In this redraft league, I got to know if it's a redraft league or not. If it's a redraft league, I would say no.
Yeah, if it's redraft, I'm going to lean toward no. You're welcome, Jack. Any other questions? We're going to be on for a little bit. But if it's redraft, man, I don't know. I'd probably hold on to Devonta Smith just for the simple fact that you saw, what kind of involvement he can have with his starting quarterback. And we don't know what kind of involvement Garrett Wilson's going to have when Zach Wilson comes back, who is slated to start week 4. That news came out earlier today. So I'm curious. There's just too many scenarios about, or potential drop-off scenarios when Joe Flacco takes the seat again. Is Zach Wilson good enough to make 2 fantasy relevant receivers? Do they go back to running the football more with Michael Carter and Breece Hall? There's too many questions to kind of, ease Zach Wilson back into the offense. I would probably lean towards staying with Devontae Smith.
John Ferris. I know that they're one of our dynasty leagues we're in together. I know that for a fact, but you guys traded Duvernay and Denver tight end for Keenan Allen. That dude lost that trade, in my opinion, badly.
Yeah, that Keenan Allen side wins that easily. A lot of people were hyped up on Albert O when the season started, and I don't understand why, because Russell Wilson hadn't had a top 12 tight end fantasy season since Jimmy Graham's first year in Seattle, which was ages ago. But oh God, I'm not going to answer Jake's question here. Hold on, wait. So Jack asked another question. What do you think of this trade?
I'm looking at private chat real quick, Ryan.
That's all. Yeah, Bill, go ahead. Hey, guys, we have another guest for you. It's the other guy who runs BSing Sports. It's the B to BSing Sports. What's up? You're muted.
Sorry about that. What's up, fellas?
Muted Bill. We've muted Tim and muted Bill.
I finished. Oh, here it is. I finished work. I took a shower. My dinner's out there getting cold, waiting on me. But I just loved all the interaction, and I had to join.
You don't need dinner. Nobody eats dinner anymore. Anyway. Nobody cares about your dinner. We care about Jack's question here. Also, what do you think of this trade? Travis Etienne and Bateman for Javonte Williams. I think that's an interesting one. It depends on your depth at wide receiver, in my opinion. If you're thin at wide receiver, you lost this deal.
Yes, I agree.
Simply because, as I touched on earlier, Bateman's the number 1 wide receiver, clear cut, in an offense that without J.K. Dobbins seems very interested in throwing the football all over the field. And from the sounds of it, the Ravens are really going to ease Dobbins back in, so he's not going to have a full workload until probably midseason. So that means the first half of the year, Rashad Bateman's probably, a wide receiver 1. This changes it. I think you won the deal.
Yes. Yep.
Here's why I think you won the deal. Javonte Williams has about mid RB2 with some RB1 weeks sprinkled in. That's kind of where he sits at right now. But to me, if Melvin Gordon gets hurt, Javonte Williams is a top 5 back. He's going to eat all the carries. He's going to get all the backfield receptions. Probably going to play roughly 85% of the snaps. So if Melvin Gordon gets hurt, that's a league-winning move right there. Strengthening up your running back core, I like that. If you have Drake London to fill in for Bateman, that's an easy good trade.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. If you have London to fill in for Bateman, then that's a done deal in my opinion. As Ryan pointed out, Melvin Gordon's not exactly young anymore. It will be Javonte Williams' offense, we thought, as early as this season, and it just turns out that they re-signed Melvin Gordon because he didn't want to go anywhere else. And now he's splitting carries. But yeah, for a redraft league in a scenario where you have Drake London to follow up, I would say that's a good deal.
Before we answer I can't pronounce his name.
Hold on,
let's answer John's.
Oh, we have this one right here.
I thought we wasn't going to answer Krogan's.
No, I said you guys can answer. I know exactly why he's asking this question because I'll give you some background to this. So,
I mean, I got one up for trade. Come get him.
He said in a league that he was selling his running backs. He wasn't very high on his team, and he shouldn't be. His team's not very good.
Yeah.
So I asked about Leonard Fournette, and he told me the price was 2 2023 first-round picks, and I told him that was insane. So
that's a little insane considering.
That's why I'm sitting out.
It's a little insane considering he's not even an RB1. Again, Ryan pointed it out earlier. It's a 1 through 12 scenario. Leonard Fournette is not in that top 12 on any one of my books in any way you shape it and form it. So for me, asking for 2 1s for Leonard Fournette is absolutely absurd. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree, Bill. I know Ryan and I touched on it yesterday while we were playing a game together. If you would have negotiated to 123 first, I might have done a trade, but I'm not paying $2, man.
Agreed. I think he's
as a true contender needing a running back. You probably could have talked me into paying 123 first for Leonard Fournette, but the reality is he's 27 years old on a contract year, maybe going to a different team, maybe staying on the Tom Brady-less Bucs. The future is very cloudy after this year. So while I think Fournette will eventually produce, Tom Brady's kind of shaken off the rust of being gone for 2 weeks during the preseason. I think he will end up kicking it into gear. But no 27-year-old running back is ever going to be worth 223 first. That's ridiculous.
All right, let's go.
Arjun Paul Danoa.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, here we go. My wide receiver group is pretty rough. I have Sutton, Juju, Mooney, Ayuk, and Garrett Wilson. I have to sit one. Who should I sit?
Mooney.
Yeah, I'd probably say Mooney. Ayuk's looking pretty sittable too, in my opinion.
Yeah, but hear me out. Now with Jimmy Garoppolo back there, he does have some kind of like built up what's the word I'm looking for?
Chemistry.
Coercion, I guess, with Ayuk, and Ayuk could see more balls there. Sutton, Russell Wilson is. I know, thanks. Russell Wilson,
wide receiver one.
Yeah, Sutton, especially Russell Wilson's going to figure it out. He's going to. And Sutton is a wide receiver one. Juju is still extremely talented in an offense that throws the ball 40 times a game. And we already Ryan and Timmy already discussed the Garrett Wilson situation. So it's between Mooney and Ayuk. And for me, Ayuk gets the nod to start over Mooney.
Listen, I agree with Bill, but I want to, like Ryan said, Ayuk is a suitable candidate too, especially with Trey Lance getting hurt. Jimmy G barely threw the ball to Ayuk last year.
He had like one decent stretch of 4 weeks or the second half or something like that.
Exactly. It was basically all Debo getting a touch from Jimmy G. But right now, I would sit Mooney because Justin Fields has to figure it out before you consider anyone else.
I personally would sit Brandon Ayuk, and here's why. Yes, Mooney has sucked so far this year, but again, he's the number one receiver on a not very good offense. Ayuk, with Kittle coming back this week because he was very close to playing last week, so it's assumed he's going to play this week, is now easily the number 3. With Jimmy Garoppolo, who does not have the NFL arm strength to push the ball downfield, which is Ayuk's specialty. So to me, I'd probably go Mooney because he is the clear-cut number 1, should see clear-cut number 1 targets, but it's either or. That's why we have him on the show. Really, we just need him to pronounce the hard-to-pronounce names. So thank you for
That's all I'm good for. That's all I'm good for.
Yeah, that was a good question, actually. I like that one. And then you said John's question. Here we go. Last question. Do I start Matty at Jared Goff? You start anybody except Matty Ice at this point.
Matty Ice messed me up in 2 leagues, man. I'm done with him.
Not only that, but Goff has thrown for what? Almost 650 yards in 2 games and what?
Look at what Amon-Ra St. Brown's doing right now. Yeah, and that should tell you need to start Jared Goff. In a game that I expect to be very offensive, I don't think that the Lions defense is very good. So I expect a shootout there.
Ooh.
Okay, so next question. Oh, wow. Okay, we got a lot of questions.
Let's do it.
Okay, but what if they start to throw against Texans defense where Mooney could get a high count target? Yeah, that's what I said.
But he has right here, it should be –
for me, it was between Juju and Mooney.
Now, until Sky Moore or MVS or McCole Hardman proves themselves to be a true number 1, it could be any receiver any week. Juju has the ceiling. He has the touchdown potential being in a really good offense. So you don't sit decent receivers in good offenses for decent receivers in bad offenses. That's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. So Jarrett, the kid, asks, who should I start in a full PPR 10-team league at my flex? A.J. Dillon versus Tampa, Garrett Wilson versus Cincy, Courtland Sutton versus San Fran. You can stop there. The answer is Sutton.
Yep.
Or Ayuk versus Denver for those of you listening on Spotify, because this episode will be on Spotify and Apple Podcasts later. I will actually download the audio and put it on there.
So as I just pointed out, Russell Wilson's going to get it together, and I believe it starts this week. And as Ryan pointed out, Courtland Sutton is the clear wide receiver 1 there. People could argue that Jerry Jeudy is going to be taking some receptions away from him, and I don't believe it. So for me, it's Sutton hands down clear. As for any four of those players, it's Courtland Sutton that should be starting.
Yeah, and I know A.J. Dillon is tempting because he has a nice floor. However, Tampa's had a fantastic run defense the last 3 years. So if you can start somebody who's more guaranteed than Dillon, like Courtland Sutton should be, I would go ahead and start that.
Can we pull up the double timeout real quick at the bottom?
Yeah, I got it. Hey,
not that one.
Not that one?
I got it.
All right, Bill got it.
He said, okay, I'll go Sutton. I'm scared Garrett Wilson has another big week, though. And listen, that could happen. It happens to all of us. We start the wrong guy. But if you're looking for absolute consistency for me, and it sounds like for these guys as well, it's Sutton.
Exactly.
Yeah, statistically speaking, you're going with the obvious favorite of a good quarterback who you trust to figure it out versus Joe Flacco throwing the ball to Garrett Wilson. I mean, there's too many unknowns there because Garrett Wilson could obviously, crap the bed, and it could be Elijah Moore's week. I would probably go with the safer option here. I think the ceiling for Sutton is higher, and so is the floor.
We go back up to the other one.
I'm working on it. Here we go. Low Sweat Movie says, hey, I've got Tua, Henry, Fournette, Waddle, A.J. Brown, and Kittle going into this week. On my bench, I got Aaron Jones and Christian Kirk. I feel pretty good going forward. It's just a comment, and I love it.
Yeah, I would too. I would feel very good about that lineup.
Wait, he's not done.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Lineup. Definitely go lineup, man.
I'm not big on saying this because a lot of things can happen and it's only week 3, but congratulations on your finals appearance, sir. Doing just fine there.
Yeah, I got to agree with that one.
Bill, good luck this weekend. I play you in both dynasties.
I'm going down to that, and then I'll go back up to Arjun. Let's see. He says, you guys think Garrett Wilson will keep this dominant target share with Zach back, or should I find some value for him now?
If it's redraft, trade high. Get out of it.
Yep.
However, if it's dynasty, hold.
Yes.
Hold. Actually, this is weird because I would consider this a good buy low opportunity in dynasty and a sell high in redraft, if that makes any sense, because Garrett Wilson could consistently do this over the course of the next 10 years. Not 30 points a game. That's ridiculous. But he could consistently put up, high-end wide receiver 2 numbers over the next 10 years. Whereas, in redraft, like, hey, if you can go get a solid running back for him or something like that, if you can go trade Garrett Wilson for I don't even know. If you could trade Garrett Wilson for probably Rashad Bateman, I would go do that.
Yeah, I definitely would do that.
Bateman has, less competition and a much more stable quarterback situation. So,
okay.
All right, next
let's
question.
go down to
CD
Smitty. Should I trade Zeke for Terry McLaurin? Yes.
Bro, you hate Zeke. Be quiet.
So let me go into it. You're right. I absolutely despise Zeke. I will never draft him in any league. I will never trade for him in any league. He will never be on one of my rosters. I think he's a complete piece of dog shit, and I don't want him on my team. A. B. I don't know who your backup running backs are or your wide receivers are. If you have value enough to be trading Zeke as a player, it looks like you need a wide receiver, and I'd still say yes, go get Terry McLaurin.
All right. You redeem yourself, but like you said, it depends on who your other running backs are and what your wide receivers are. If you have like a Tony Pollard behind Zeke, definitely trade Zeke away. Tony Pollard going to get more touches with
I had a hot take that I'm right on so far.
What? Oh, that Tony Pollard was going to
play more snaps than Zeke. Yep.
Tony Pollard going to out-touch Zeke on touches because of Cooper Rush. But if you don't have anyone else better than Zeke, I would keep Zeke.
Yeah, it really does depend on your running back situation. I don't think Zeke stays in the 6-point range all season, truthfully. I mean, he does score a lot of touchdowns.
You're right. I think it goes down.
Yeah. I hope it goes down the weeks that he plays the Eagles. However, obviously we're all Eagles fans, as you can see. However, I think that he starts to get some more goal line touches. I think that the Cowboys offense surprisingly does well enough, to keep them in games, especially what I just witnessed on Sunday. That was a miracle in all honesty. Nobody saw that coming. But I expect better weeks from Zeke, but if you can get McLaurin for him in a PPR league, I would do it.
All right, we got a question. Timmy, you want to read this one? I'll pull it up. There you go. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not that one. Here you go.
What's your opinion on Marquis Brown? I feel like he had incredible high ceilings and his skill and Kyler Murray's ability, but it seems like they haven't figured it out yet. Give them more time, man. Give them more time. They're going to figure it out. Especially when D-Hop come back, the main focus is going to be on D-Hop, and Marquis Brown going to have the corner twos and the corner threes, linebackers covering him. Keep Marquis Brown. Have confidence in him. He's going to start. He's going to get his numbers.
I was the highest on Marquis Brown in our rankings when we did them preseason. I had him at number 15 for my Dynasty wide receiver rankings. And that is because I think Marquis Brown and Kyler Murray fit like a glove and a hand. Marquis Brown is a fantastic deep threat. We saw it with Lamar Jackson last year. Before Lamar Jackson went down, Marquis Brown was wide receiver 11 on the season. And that wasn't over the course of 1 or 2 weeks. Lamar Jackson went down in week 12. So there was a sustained period of success. Give it a little bit of time. Kyler Murray has some things to figure out. And when the offense gets flowing, James Conner comes back into the game. DeAndre Hopkins comes back in the game. I think D-Hop coming there makes Marquis Brown that much better. I think they'll start spreading the ball around a little bit more. I think it'll open up plays downfield. But Zach Ertz being hurt with a calf injury, James Conner kind of being hurt with an ankle in week 2, they're just not really vibing right now. So I would say give it a little bit more time, but I love Marquis Brown, man. I think truthfully he ends up being about a mid-wide receiver too. So he's a guaranteed flex play for me every week. Speaking of that, I have a question for you guys. Speaking of guaranteed flex plays, in a certain league that we might all be in,
obviously.
Am I flexing Marquis Brown against the Rams, or am I flexing Rashad Bateman in New England?
Bateman in New England.
I'm going to go Brown against that really struggling Jalen Ramsey. No, hear me out though. Jalen Ramsey is supposed to be like absolutely phenomenal. And towards the end of last season and even in the Super Bowl, he didn't look absolutely stunning. And to start the season, he's looked a little flat. So for me, I'm going start Hollywood, man.
Nah. Yeah, see, you guys going opposite answers. I needed a consensus. So, chat, what I need from you guys is Marquis Brown against the Rams or Rashad Bateman in New England. You got about like 3 minutes to give me my answer, guys. Help me out, please.
We're going to take one more question and then we'll be back on next week. Or at least I'm going to take one more question and then I'll be back on next week. We're going to go to Monique down here. Oh, here we go. Ryan, you want to read that one?
Hi, guys. Feel a little weak at running back 2 with Josh Jacobs. I would agree. I have Patterson, Henderson, and Singletary on the bench. Is anyone playable, or should I try and find a better option to trade? Out of those 4 names, I would definitely try to find a better option, but I'm probably still going to go with Josh Jacobs, maybe Cordero Patterson, depending on the matchup against the who did we just say that Atlanta plays this week? They play Seattle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would probably go Josh Jacobs. I think he's the safest floor here, but I would be very uncomfortable if those were my running back 2s, unless I was very strong at receiver. I hope that you are very strong at receiver. But yeah, that seems like a very hero running back strategy to me. I'm going Josh Jacobs for now, but if you can trade for any better options, please do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, it took my whole train of thought, Ryan. I was looking at another comment. But yeah, Josh Jacobs against Seattle. No, they don't play Seattle. Who did Raiders play? I'm sorry.
The Falcons play Seattle. The Raiders have the...
Hold on. Let me look.
We should have this. Yeah, we really should have had this pulled up.
It's okay. I mean,
We got to do our predictions in 2 days anyway.
if you guys check out our predictions in 2 days anyway, you'll know who plays who. But they're at Tennessee.
Titans, yeah. Titans are looking for a bounce back win.
Yeah, I think Jacobs going to have a game against the Titans.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm going to disagree.
I personally think Jacobs is the best option right now, but that's just me. Chat mostly said Bateman there, so I guess I'm going to leave Bateman in, but
I'm going to disagree with the Jacobs. However, I don't like any of these options. I absolutely would go looking for a trade. I don't really like Cordarrelle Patterson either. Algier has started with, I think, 3 or 4. Brown. Oh, she's got more comments. I'm sorry. She has Cooper and Evans and Smith, and she also has Brown. I don't know which Brown. I think, that might be an answering to your question.
Probably answering my question. Okay. I'll figure it out on Sunday.
Timmy just brought up a really good point in our private chat. If we didn't answer you on the show and you're looking for an answer, we will answer. We will reach out to you privately. One of the 3 of us, and we'll give you an answer. This is the first time we've done a fantasy show like this, and I literally was watching it, sitting on my couch, and decided that I couldn't sit on the couch anymore. I had to be a part of it because it's absolutely wonderful. All the engagement that we're getting, and guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We can't express how much we appreciate it. So trust me, even if we don't answer it here, we will come back and we will answer it. Okay.
We have a list of our socials that we post at the end of this show. Please hang around for the outro. You guys can get all of our information. All 3 of us are on Twitter. We have a Facebook page. We're very active. Just reach out to us if you have any questions. Like Bill said, we're going to be doing this every Wednesday. At least Tim and I will be. Bill will probably be in and out. But, yeah, we'll be here every Wednesday for all your questions and needs. So thank you for the interaction, guys. Don't forget to give us a like, share, follow, and tell your friends about us because we got some answers. You got questions, we got answers.
So to finally finish out what I was going to say for Monique, I'm probably going Devin Singletary here. I know you guys are going to disagree. It's a split backfield there. However, Singletary has been the primary one, and he's shown flashes of being really good. So for me, it's Devin Singletary, and that's just where I'm standing on it. But I've been higher on Singletary than the both of you have, and I've been lower on Jacobs than the both of you have, and that's totally fine. But for me, it's Singletary.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement, though, that you should seek a trade for either a better running back too, or to solidify your wide receiver room.
Yes. Are you guys going to stay on?
Tim, that's up to you.
I'm cool for a couple more questions, but I gotta get.
All right, I'm going to go, but I am going to give you my sign off before I hop off. Thanks for joining us here on BSing Sports, where we do a little BS and we talk a whole lot of sports. Have a good rest of the show, fellas.
Bye, Bill.
Bye. All right, so we answered Monique.
God, got the dead weight off the show. I'm just kidding, guys. Bill is a fantastic host. He hosts most of our segments throughout the week. We're live every Tuesday and Friday. We do a recap of the week on Tuesday. We do predictions on Fridays. So go ahead and check that out, as well as some other segments throughout the week. So like I said, you guys give us a follow, like, share, whatever the case may be. We appreciate all the support, subscriptions for those of you on YouTube. So, Tim, you said you got a couple more questions?
Yeah, I got this one right here for Jerry the Kid. Okay, so I have Lamar as my starting quarterback and Russell Wilson as my backup. How did he get both of them? 2, would he trade Lamar and maybe Garrett Wilson for elite wide receiver and start Rush? No, trade Russell Wilson. Keep Lamar and trade Russell Wilson. Lamar is most probably fantasy quarterback number 3 and will finish top 3. Keep Lamar Jackson. Trade Russell Wilson. Get a decent wide receiver.
Lamar Jackson's ceiling is QB1 of fantasy because of how often he runs the football. I think that gets better when J.K. Dobbins comes back. Right now, they have absolutely no running game. Kenyon Drake and Mike Davis are not getting it done. There's no supporting cast in the backfield, making it really hard for Jackson to feast off of those read options that he loves to run off of. So I think Lamar is the play to keep at quarterback here. Maybe package Russ and Garrett Wilson if somebody's high on the both of those. That's probably the move that I would go with. Maybe get you Courtland Sutton type or something like that. Definitely improve your wide receiver room. But, yeah.
I can't even see Russ and Garrett Wilson for like Hill or Waddle, to be honest.
I think Waddle and Sutton are probably in the same class. As good of a game as Waddle had, don't get me wrong, I still think he's the clear-cut number 2 to Tyreek Hill. That's my opinion, though. I would trade Russell Wilson first.
Here's another one. Should I start Christian Kirk or Drake London? Christian Kirk. He had been proving me wrong. I traded him in every
game. Dude, I unloaded him in every league. He was the big contract. I in a hurry got rid of Christian Kirk. I sold Christian Kirk and Darnell Mooney for Michael Pittman, which obviously I'm still happy about, but still.
I regret trading Christian Kirk, especially with the league I just joined last week. I regret it.
He's a big
loser.
Christian Kirk. Regrets it.
Stop Christian Kirk, man. Drake London had a good week last week. He's going to get the picks, but Christian Kirk is going to be the man in Jacksonville for a little bit until they find a true number 1 wide receiver. All right.
I'm picking Kirk as well, probably just for the simple fact that I expect the Chargers to be beating Jacksonville most of that game, so the volume should be there. But it's close, man. Those are 2 very good options. They're very equally on the same playing field so far this season. I would go Christian Kirk this week because I expect better volume from him.
Here's another one. 4 PPR flex.
Thank you for the sub, Monique. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
4
PPR flex. Kareem Hunt, Allen Robinson, ETN, or Devontae Smith.
Smith is the odd one out for me. Like, obviously, what I do when I have scenarios like this, I try and rule the odd one out. And Smith just won't see the consistency of volume to truly be trusted over the other 3. And then ETN, I'd eliminate him because we haven't seen much from him yet. There's still more to be desired. For me, it's Allen Robinson that you start at the flex here. They're in a good offense. They throw the ball a lot. They still don't have a clear-cut number 1 running back, and the Rams are going to figure it out. You got to remember the Rams sat every single starter in every single preseason game. Weeks 1 and week 2 were preseason games for them. They were shaking off the rust. They were getting back into the groove of football. So I think the Rams only get better from here, and Allen Robinson to me is the safest start here.
I'm going to have to disagree with you, Ryan. I'm going to say Kareem Hunt. So every week, Kareem Hunt or Nick Chubb goes off. Kareem Hunt had week 1. Nick Chubb had week 2. Kareem Hunt's going to have week 3.
Oh, you're just going to play Kareem Hunt on the odd weeks and Chubb on the even weeks?
That's how it seems like. Apparently, before Kareem Hunt got hurt last year, he was running back number 7.
Oh, I'm not saying he doesn't have good numbers, but if anything, it showed you that there should be a little bit of inconsistency with how they're going to use, because you think about what Kareem Hunt's main role is, 3rd down pass catching back. Well, Nick Chubb just caught 3 balls last week. You think about Nick Chubb being the main goal line back. Kareem Hunt stole goal line touches week 1. There's no consistency with how they're going to use them. Now, granted, he could be an every week flex play, and that's great. But for me, the safer version is Allen Robinson.
Now, for me, in some leagues, I'm rebuilding. I'm playing both. I got one more question in me. Let me see if I can find it. Let me make sure I answer it all in a row.
Yeah, we're trying, guys. There's a lot of questions coming in. I'll pull up this one from Jeb Armstrong.
Yeah. I can
answer Jeb. Should I trade Javonte Williams for Debo? Yes. I don't even care who your other running backs are. Yes,
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
My other running backs are Barkley and Taylor. Absolutely. How did you get a team like this? But yes, wow. I would make this trade if the person with Debo will take this trade. Although Debo's price is probably going to go up a little bit with the injuries to Elijah Mitchell and Tyrion Davis Price. Jeff Wilson's the only running back that's gotten an NFL carry in the backfield now. So I think, wide back Debo Samuel's probably going to get a little bit more carries. But if he's going to take that trade, then yes, I would smash accept on that all day. Barkley and Taylor are more than sufficient running backs to carry you through a season. They could potentially be 1 and 2. Both could be top 5. And you're going to need a little bit better than DJ Moore until he proves otherwise. All
right, there's one more that I skipped over by accident. I'm going to pull it up for you. Should I trade Patterson and A-Rod for Javonte or Fournette? If they take that trade, absolutely, man.
Yes. I would do that trade for either or.
If they send that to you, you better smash that set button, man. No question about it.
Yeah, I completely agree 100%. That's to have a strong PPR running back like that, I would say Fournette's probably a little bit safer of a floor because he doesn't share touches, but Javonte's got the ceiling because one, he's just more talented, and two, if Melvin Gordon gets hurt for any sort of substantial amount of time, Javonte Williams is a top 5 back easy. All right, Tim,
real quick.
Are we going to answer one more?
Yes, he's got Cousins versus Detroit, especially with Justin Jefferson.
Well, I mean, it depends on who your other options are.
I think it's Matty Ice for him. So
then Cousins versus Detroit by a mile. But
exactly.
All right, guys. This was a great pilot episode. Thank you for all the interaction. We really enjoyed ourselves here. We had a fantastic time answering your questions. Like we said earlier, if we did not get to your question on this show, our social medias will be on the outro. You can shoot us a message on Twitter, Facebook, wherever you need us to go for, and we will reach back to you with an answer. Or you can tune in next week, Wednesday, same time, and we will be here to answer your questions again. Tim, do you have anything to say before we sign off?
Like you said, if you have any other questions, reach out to us. We will answer. We're not mean like we don't answer. We will answer. We love talking about fantasy sports.
My Twitter handle is right here at Ryan BSing Sports for those of you that don't want to wait for our outro. Other than that, we've got nothing else to add. Thank you for a great pilot episode. If you subscribed, liked, followed, shared, hopefully we'll see you Friday. If not, we'll see you back here next Wednesday for more fantasy questions. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen.